Welcome into OutKick the Show. I hope all of you are having fantastic days wherever you may be across this great country or this great land. Bombshell landing a little bit earlier. Michigan-Ohio State has been canceled. What are the ramifications? I will break them down for you, but want to tell you right off the jump here, State of Tennessee, the University of Tennessee men's basketball team is playing. If they cover, you get a 2-to-1 payout. Also, great offers everywhere. Trust me, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Colorado, every state, Michigan, and Virginia about to be live. Go sign up today at fanduel.com/clay. That's fanduel.com/clay. Get signed up and be ready to roll. We have a lot coming in your direction. But we start here. Michigan-Ohio State has been canceled, and now there are major issues going forward for the Big Ten as it pertains to their Big Ten title game. In theory, this means Ohio State will only be able to play 5 regular season football games, and they would not be eligible to make the Big Ten title game without the rules being changed on the fly. Who changes the rules? The Big Ten athletic directors. Are the votes there to change those rules? It's unclear. If the rules aren't changed, then theoretically Indiana would play against Northwestern on December the 19th in the Big Ten title game. Could Michigan and Ohio State play that day? Maybe. Maybe Michigan and Ohio State would be good to go by then. Maybe they could give Ohio State another opponent. But the larger context here is that there are major issues afoot for Ohio State. Now that they only get 6 games, is that going to be enough to get them in the college football playoff? And more importantly, and this is significant, could both Ohio State and Texas A&M, who are probably going to be the teams combating to try to end up as the final playoff team, could they play this weekend? I'll toss you out an idea. First of all, if I'm Texas A&M athletic director Ross Bjork, I sit down with Jimbo Fisher and I say, hey, this is important. Let's think about this. We should say we're willing to travel to Columbus, Ohio and play Ohio State this weekend. Why? Because it puts the onus on Ohio State to have to say they aren't willing to play Texas A&M. Why could that matter? Well, if Texas A&M is to finish 8-1 and Ohio State only finishes 6-0, maybe some playoff committee members might be swayed by the idea that Texas A&M was willing to travel to Columbus and play Ohio State this weekend on short notice, and Ohio State said no. Worth thinking about. Remember, Texas A&M not playing this weekend because their game against Ole Miss has been canceled. So you have the number 4 and the number 5 teams in college football theoretically able to play this weekend against each other. If I am Texas A&M, if I am one of their power brokers, I say we're willing to play and put the onus on Ohio State to say they're not willing to play. It could have playoff ramifications going forward. Maybe some of the playoff committee members would consider that to be a bit of a difference maker for Texas A&M in the event that that ends up being the decision they have to make. Texas A&M versus Ohio State, I think they should play this weekend. What if they don't want to play in Columbus and they don't want to play in College Station? Just tossing out an idea here. City of Nashville, we got a nice stadium the Titans usually play in. They're on a bye this weekend. It's sitting completely open. Could we play Ohio State against Texas A&M at the midway point between College Station and Columbus, Nashville, Tennessee? Seems like a fairly decent offer that would be out there for the number 4 and the number 5 team to play in short notice. But the reason why I would make that offer if I was Texas A&M, over and above I think it's good for them, is, remember, there's no fans present at Ohio State. And so the advantages of playing in their own venue would be minimal, considering there is no home field advantage. Again, to me, this is a no-brainer. We saw Coastal Carolina and BYU schedule a game on shorter notice. If I was Texas A&M, I'd go ahead and put it out there that we're willing to play against Ohio State. Basically consider that to be a play-in game for the college football playoff. And neither team would necessarily, I don't think, need to play another game after that one in the next weekend. And there you have it. Whoever won that game would advance to the college football playoff, probably as your number 3 or number 4 seed. All right, that's my thoughts on Michigan, Ohio State. Let me also say this. Kirk Herbstreit got a lot of criticism last week, I think it was, on Tuesday when he floated the idea that this might happen. And everybody was upset at him, and Michigan was outraged and everything else. Guess what? Michigan's not playing against Ohio State. His job is to talk about things that might end up happening, and it ended up happening. After he made his comments on Tuesday, the game against Maryland was canceled, and then the game against Ohio State was canceled. Herbstreit apologized, but he ended up being 100% right. He was just ahead of the curve in terms of the overall storyline there. I feel bad for Ohio State. I feel bad for the Big Ten, which created this situation by starting their season so late they had to cancel everything as opposed to being able to suspend games. I suppose Michigan-Ohio State could theoretically still be played on December 19th, on the day that theoretically the Big Ten championship game would be played. But if I'm Ohio State, I want to go ahead and get a team scheduled this weekend and not have to worry about what might happen next weekend. Again, big decision for the athletic directors, whether or not they are willing or able to adjust on the fly the rules for who ends up playing for the championship. Last night, double Monday Night Football games. The Washington football team beats the Steelers. Alex Smith is your comeback player of the year. He's your comeback player of the decade. He may be your comeback player of the 2000s after what he did. What an unbelievable story on the Washington football team side as they get to 5-7 and knock the Steelers from the ranks of the unbeaten. But I have to say, this is why the Steelers don't really scare anybody in the NFL. They can't run the football. They had already won 5 games by a touchdown or less. If you asked an NFL team, hey, you have to play against the Steelers or the Chiefs, I think the other 30 NFL teams would all vote to play the Steelers. The Chiefs are a prohibitive favorite, sitting at 20-1 in their last 21 games. And what the Washington football team did to the Steelers, I think many other teams theoretically could do as well. Doesn't mean the Steelers are a bad team. They're not. I think Mike Tomlin is the coach of the year. I think but for Alex Smith, Ben Roethlisberger would be the comeback player of the year. But when you actually see what has happened in these Steeler games, their inability to run the football, the injury to Bud Dupree, the overall issues, you already lost your starting linebacker Bush. And so you start to look at all these other impacts on the Steelers, and I'm just not sold that they are a big-time Super Bowl contender. The Bills, speaking of big-time Super Bowl contenders, went on the road and beat the 49ers, as I told you they would do in my OutKick 6-pack of picks. By the way, yesterday we went 3-0. The picks that I gave out to you. I gave you Washington, they won outright. I gave you the Bills as the underdog, they won outright. And I gave you the under in the Washington-Pittsburgh game, 3-0 on Monday Night Football games yesterday. Let me take a step back, by the way. The NFL has to make all of the games that get rescheduled for COVID nationwide. I couldn't watch this game yesterday on my local Fox affiliate in Nashville, but somehow it was on in Knoxville. That doesn't make any sense to me. Every one of these rescheduled COVID games should be a nationwide telecast that everybody can watch. It's crazy to me that they would restrict a game like that, which in theory everyone would be able to watch. Poor decision by the NFL not to work this out so everybody got to watch it. Speaking of poor decisions, it's a poor decision by the San Francisco 49ers not to actually file a lawsuit against Santa Clara County, because that's why they ended up playing in Arizona because they were kicked out of their home county along with Stanford, along with San Jose State. It makes zero sense that the 49ers are not allowed to play in San Francisco, but they are allowed to play in Arizona. As a result, the field didn't look great. They had traveled with hundreds of people associated with the San Francisco 49ers, and the Bills finally got revenge for the Hail Murray where they lost the last time they were playing in Arizona. Josh Allen, 4 touchdowns, 80% plus passing, nearly 400 yards. This guy has become a revelation at the quarterback position, making the throws that he is making. I think the Bills are the biggest threat right now, probably, to the Chiefs in the AFC based on what I am seeing, as they are the 3 seed and would be slotted right now to go up against the Chiefs if the playoffs were starting now in the divisional round. Assuming they won the Titans in their wild card game, Titans would be going on the road against the Steelers. I would definitely rather play the Steelers, like I said earlier, than I would the Chiefs. So, Bills get the win. They're now 9-3. Let me go ahead and give you my OutKick top 5. The OutKick top 5. The Chiefs are the best team in the NFL. They are 20-1 in their last 21. The Saints are the second best team in the NFL. Best team in the NFC, sitting at 10-2. Credit to Sean Payton. He's got Taysom Hill and Teddy Bridgewater. They've started 8 games in place of Drew Brees over the last 2 years, and the Saints are 8-0 in those football games. Teddy Bridgewater got a big contract last year after going 5-0. Taysom Hill now 3-0. 8-0 for Sean Payton. That's pretty incredible. Again, the Chiefs, the number 1 overall seed. The Saints, the number 2. The Steelers are the 3 seed. And the Steelers, I think that's probably being a little bit generous to them, but they are 11-1, and they have a 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback. The Packers, I've got at 4, and then I have got the Bills all the way down at the 5, cracking into my top 5. The NFL OutKick top 5. Chiefs 1, Saints 2, Steelers 3, Packers 4, and the Bills in the 5th spot. All right, how about big news out of Philadelphia? They gave Carson Wentz over $100 million guaranteed, the Eagles did, and they have now benched him in favor of Jalen Hurts. The Eagles looking for an opportunity to shake up their season. They drafted Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round. He came in and played down the stretch against the Packers last weekend. The Carson Wentz experiment potentially over. The problem is the Eagles have $100 million tied up in him. I don't know how you reconcile that or feel like you have any success going forward. This is a sign, I think, that Doug Peterson is starting to feel a lot of pressure. And if you remember, I told you last week, if the Philadelphia Eagle fans were present, they would be booing Carson Wentz to such an extent that I don't believe he would even be able to be the starting quarterback still in Philadelphia. So that's where we are, where Jalen Hurts has been named the Eagles starter. And so we'll have to figure out exactly what is going on there. Finally, Michigan and Jim Harbaugh are talking about a contract extension, but Harbaugh has reportedly had 5 different NFL teams reach out to him. Given the Ohio State game is canceled, maybe a fair question to ask if Michigan has played their final game with Jim Harbaugh as their coach. Harbaugh theoretically could go to Chicago. He could go to LA, to the Chargers. He could maybe end up a lot of different places where things have not gone well. Jacksonville, who knows what team may reach out. The awful Wobegon, never any good Jets. There are so many different teams out there that look to be poised to fire their head coaches. Could Jim Harbaugh be headed back to the NFL? It's certainly a story worth paying attention to. All right, I love all of you. Again, tonight we have got the Ravens going up against the Cowboys. Lamar Jackson is back from the COVID list, perfectly fine, because of course he is. The Cowboys, meanwhile, have had a lot of time to lick their wounds since they were destroyed on Thanksgiving. I like a well-rested Cowboy team here. I really do. To cover the 8.5, FanDuel.com/Clay. Get your bets in now. FanDuel.com/Clay. You will be glad that you did. Final story, Goya Foods. Did you see this? I love a story like this. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, as she is known, demanded that everybody out there boycott Goya Foods after the CEO of Goya Foods praised Donald Trump. And the CEO of Goya Foods, I love this, said they named AOC their Employee of the Week because overall sales were up 1,000% after the call for the boycott. Nothing gets people more fired up than the idea of a boycott, and often it fires up the people that you don't want to fire up, the people on the opposite side of the equation. So props to Goya Foods. That's really, really funny what they did and what they said. Also, another story out there I meant to mention, Howard Stern has signed on for 5 more years with Sirius XM for a reported $120 million a year. He is an old man now in his upper 60s, but that is a pretty unbelievable contract to sign. And we'll see what happens going forward with Howard Stern. I would say this in general. It's interesting. Howard Stern used to be a rebel, and now he's a part of the PC woke brigade. It's honestly kind of fascinating how that process has played itself out, that Howard Stern, who used to be the king of all rebellion, is now one of the leaders of the woke army. I think he does pretty good interviews, but every time I hear his opinion now, they are bland, they are boring, they are the equivalent of everything you would hear on CNN or MSNBC. For a guy who used to be the king of the anti-woke brigade to lead the charge against the politically correct community, to end up being a part of the politically correct community is really quite the pivot. And I think it's made him, frankly, a lot less entertaining going forward. All right, I love all of you. We're going to be live in about 50 minutes at 4:30. Sorry, what time are we going live? Yeah, 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central, 2:30 Mountain, 1:30 Pacific on Fox Bet Live. I appreciate all of you for watching us. My name is Clay Travis. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP. Go get your bets in. I'm on the Cowboys plus the points. NFC East, break them up. They're on fire. The Giants get a big win against the Seahawks, and Washington gets a big win against the Steelers. Get that game scheduled. I want to see Texas A&M going up against Ohio State, and I want to see it this weekend. If I were Texas A&M, I would make that argument public, and I would make that argument public now. Kisses from me, especially to the haters. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP. This has been